Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel X Psychic Saved with me, Jen Nitza, your friendly former psychic medium. See, I just need to switch that. I'm still friendly, yet I'm a former psychic medium saved by the amazing grace of Jesus Christ. Okay, the $64,000 question. What is your sign? Don't answer the question, please. In this video, guys, stay tuned because I'm going to be joined by one of my favorite people and one of your favorite people, Marcia Montenegro, former astrologer, to explain horoscopes to us. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today here in this video about horoscopes. I'm a former psychic medium, and though I was not an astrologer, astrology was something that I dabbled in quite a bit. I got astrology charts done. I was hooked on my horoscope. Anywhere it could have popped up, I was cued into it. Really, I was, and I put a lot of stock into it. Maybe you know people that are doing that too. Maybe you've done that yourself. I'm here to tell you that horoscopes are not just games. It's not just innocent, and it has everything to do with astrology. So joining me today is the expert former astrologer, Miss Marcia Montenegro. Marcia, thank you so much.
Hi, Jen. It's so good
Hi.
to be back with you, as always.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I know we're partners in crime here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I changed that the last time to something else, but I don't remember what
I
it was.
don't
But
either, but I think you said it before and then you switched it. Yeah. Oh,
I
well,
did.
it'll
But
come later. Partners in something.
hey, listen, what's the crime in exposing the darkness and telling the truth? Nothing. If anything, it's something that you need to hear, guys. It's the truth with love. And we need to expose this. Marcia, you were an astrologer, and you're going to give us a little background on astrology. But can I ask you
hmm
first why it's even necessary? What is a horoscope?
Yes. Now, the horoscope is what most people think of that as a column that you might, well, now you see it on phones. It used to be in newspapers and magazines. It probably still is in some magazines, women's magazines. And so it will give you like a forecast. The daily horoscope gives it for the day. And then usually in the magazines, since the magazines often came out monthly, they would give you a
Mhm.
monthly forecast. So it would be like Gemini, here's your forecast for the month of June, if the magazine was for the month of June. Now, I used to see those all the time. I mean, they were everywhere. In the newspaper, I read the newspaper every day. I don't anymore now because getting the print copy is, it just doesn't done that much anymore, and it's extra money. So I don't, because you can read it online now. So you don't need to pay
Mhm.
for it. But so the horoscope is like a column that will say something like you go according to what your zodiac sign is, which is based on your birth date. And so let's say you are a Gemini. So then you look up at the Gemini section and it might say you will hear from an old friend today. Or may say your boss will be unusually difficult today. Or you might have a hard time with your finances. So it'll be a very short, brief little thing about the day. And that's what horoscopes really are. The word horoscope means watcher of the hour. It's from the Greek, and it actually goes back to Greece. It goes back to astrology and how it developed in the Western world, which started in Greece.
Wow.
So, do you
Wow.
want me to go on with that a little bit?
Because I'm thinking that the layperson, somebody who doesn't have this background on astrology and maybe isn't, there are even Christians
Mm-hmm.
that are confused about this.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and not, Satan is so deceptive. So
Mm-hmm.
he can make something look like something good for you, something innocent, even something fun and entertaining. And of course it's not, but without that background, you wouldn't know. So I really appreciate, you sharing the background with us and what the danger of believing in it is.
Yes. Yes. So this word horoscope that comes from Greece, astrology, which is it's very, very old, because astrology, I mean, astrologers are mentioned in the book of Daniel in Babylon. Sometimes they're called Chaldeans. Sometimes some translations will say the astrologers. Now, astrology itself is a modern word. There's not a Hebrew word that translates one-on-one astrology. So the Hebrew would describe astrology like charting out the skies, dividing up the skies, prognostication by looking at the heavenly bodies. So basing a message about the future on the position of the heavenly bodies, or honoring and even worshiping the stars or the sky was astrology, because they believed that the pagan world believed that the stars, and that included the planets, because of course at the time they didn't have the concept of a planet. The concept of what a planet is versus a star came way, way later. So like in the I don't know, maybe I don't even know, maybe the 14th or 15th century, or no, maybe a little bit earlier, but still it was much later. So everything was a star. All the bright lights were stars except for the sun and moon. And so they believed that these planets, which they thought were stars and which moved faster than the stars, the real stars, they noticed them moving in patterns, regular patterns. So they noticed, for example, Mars took about 2 years to go around the Earth, because that's its cycle. And then Jupiter, I think, is something like 7 years. Saturn is 29 years. Mercury, of course, moves faster. And so they believed that these were gods, or the homes of gods. And so there was actually worship of these. And if you go to the Greek and Roman mythology, you have the gods were identified with some of these planets, like Venus. So, so there was this spiritual view of them, and they felt that noticing their position and their movements had a meaning. So Greece initially didn't do any astrology. It was later on, after Greece was actually beginning its decline, or right before it began its decline, it started taking in foreign ideas and beliefs, which it had not done before. And it got astrology from the Arabs, from the Arab world. And once it got into Greece and there was an interest in it, they started using it. Rich people started hiring people who said they knew the meaning of these planets, and they started hiring them to read to read the chart for their child. So what happened here is that prior to this time, astrology, looking at the planets and giving a message based on their position, was done only for kings and rulers. It wasn't done for the common person. There was no such thing as a horoscope. Nobody went around saying they were, a Gemini or something like that, So that none of that happened. It was all about giving messages to the kings and rulers, which is what we see in Daniel, where the wise, the counselors and the wise counselors, the Chaldeans who gave advice to the king, part of what they did was astrology, looking at the sky and getting messages they believed that they saw in the sky. So then Greece is the first place where it started being done for just regular people. But it was for the rich, were the only people who had the money, who could hire people who somehow studied this system, and they would look at, they would get the birth date and birth hour of the child, and then you can draw a chart which shows the position of the planets and the sun and moon at the time and place of birth. And that's what an astrology chart is. So that term for doing that was watcher of the hour, which is the word horoscope. So actually in Greece, where the horoscopes began, that term was really related to looking at astrological charts. Now it's more like it's a very general kind of thing for the day, and it's divided up by the zodiac signs. So it's a little, the meaning of it is a little different now, but that's where the word comes
Mhm.
from. So now you have these horoscopes that give you, based on the 12 zodiac signs, give you advice for the day based on supposedly the position of the, usually they're looking at the moon, because the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So they're looking at the moon and your sun sign. So if you're, let's say you're a Leo, and let's say the moon is in, who know, let's just make up something. The moon is in um, a Libra and you're a Leo, okay, that they're going to give a meaning to that. Plus, they may look at the faster moving planets like Mercury and Venus and see where they are, and they'll put all that together to give some kind of message to you. So
Wow.
that's pretty much what horoscopes are based on. They're, the big part of it is the moon sign because of its fast changing nature. And so they'll try to combine that because they're not actually, they don't have your chart because obviously they don't know the birth date for every person that they're writing for. So they're just giving a very general thing. Leo, this is your advice for today. Cancer, this is your advice. Virgo, this is your advice. It's very, very general. So a lot of people, there's different views of the horoscope. Some people think it's just a fun thing. And I've had, one of the questions that I've received a lot is it okay to read my horoscope just for fun? So, it might pop up on your phone and you're curious, like, oh, I wonder what it says for me today. Let me quickly scroll down here to Sagittarius and see what it says.
Mhm.
Um, so people think, well, I'm just reading this for fun. I don't really believe it. I don't really think it's true. I'm just reading it for fun. So that's the view of a lot of people. Other people
Mhm.
think there might be something to it. So they're thinking, I'm going to read this and see, maybe something here will be applicable to my life today. And if you read it every day, eventually, just by coincidence, often something is true. So, so if it says, a good job offer could come your way, it might be that just so happens that day you do get a good job offer, maybe that you've been waiting for. So then you think, wow, well, it was right. So then you start, that makes you want to look more, because you
Mhm.
start believing it, even though it's maybe been wrong for 27 days. And now on the 28th day, it's correct. You still,
Right.
you're thinking it was right. So then you get interested and you kind of get hooked. And there are people who are just hooked on reading this. They're just curious and they want to see if what it says comes true. They want to see if it's something that's really relates to their life. Now, here's the thing about that. What I say in answer to the question, can I read it just for fun? Is no, you really can't, because when you think about what it is, it's based on the movement of the moon and probably
Mhm.
Mercury and Venus and your zodiac sign. That's what it's all based on. It's not based on anything else. It's only based on that. And all of
Right.
that is based on astrology. It's all based on a belief that the position of the planets and the sun and the moon have a meaning. There's an inherent meaning, and this meaning connects to your life. Now, so if you say you're reading the horoscope for fun, you're not really reading it for fun. You're really reading it thinking there might be something there, or maybe hoping there's something there. And that's all based on this belief that Venus means something. It's based on the belief that you as a Capricorn means something. It's based on the belief that your moon, in Sagittarius means something. I mean, this is all based on a belief you have to have. It's based on a belief in astrology. That's the bottom line. And
Right.
so astrology is spoken of quite often in the Bible, and it's always derogatory. God always
Mhm.
denounces it. It shows in Daniel, God basically shows up the astrologers that they cannot help the king at
Yeah.
all. and he gives Daniel the information that the king needs. Um, this is to show them that they don't have the ability to give any kind of meaningful message using astrology. And then we see that also in Isaiah 47 is a very good chapter that denounces Babylon's use of the occult arts. The whole chapter is basically about that. And it talks about their divination and their magic and their sorcery. And the last 3 or 4 verses are about their astrologers. And it says, go ahead and consult your astrologers. They won't even have a fire to warm themselves by. It's kind of like it's a very,
Yeah.
very strong judgment on Babylon's use of astrologers and on astrology. And it ends very, very dramatically. So it's a complete judgment on the use of all the occult arts. And so the use of astrology to try to get guidance from it is very strongly condemned in God's word. Therefore,
Right.
looking at a horoscope column, even if you think you're doing it just for fun, in a way, you're paying homage to this. You're saying,
Mhm.
I think there might be something here for me. I think there might be something to it, or I want there to be something to it. Why
Mhm.
read it at all? I mean, why even read it for fun doesn't make any sense to me, because there's still something about that where you're thinking, okay, for fun, because I kind of want to see what it says. Well, why do you want to see what it says? When it's nothing about it is going to be true or helpful or from God, but essentially it's not coming from God. So that's a very good reason not to read it.
That should be the number one
Yes,
reason,
that is the number one reason. So it's not
because if
from
it's not
God,
coming from
and number two, God's denounced it. And
right,
that's really, and yeah, it's not
that's it.
true. But
Yeah.
the first two are the main reasons.
Yeah.
That's all we need
Yeah.
to know. So the horoscope columns continue online. And of course, that can also lead people to astrology to get more serious about it. If they're reading things every day about, oh, what's going to happen today, for Aries or whatever, and they find it interesting, they might start thinking, well, I wonder what it would be like to actually, talk to an astrologer and have an astrologer tell me more about myself and more about my life, not just this little day to day tidbit. I want more, I want more information. And I mean, that's what people did when they came to me as an astrologer. They wanted more information. Um,
Absolutely, 100%. It always starts with that small, you know what
yeah,
I call it? A booby trap. I call the horoscope a
a
booby trap.
booby trap. Yeah. Yeah.
I made I didn't post it yet, but I made a video recently with some booby traps. So check
Oh,
out the definition. So, of booby trap, an apparently harmless object containing a concealed explosive device designed to kill or injure anyone who touches it. Wow.
oh,
I mean, I don't think that could be more true. So it's a booby trap because it's seemingly fun and innocent and the way it's being portrayed now. But then what happens is it leads you to want more, but it will lead
yes,
you. So it leads you to destruction. It looks innocent and fun, but it's not.
exactly.
It is ungodly, unbiblical, and that is rather offensive to God.
Yes,
Sin is offensive to God.
yes,
And looking back on it, Marcia, and I'm curious to hear what you would have to say too. When I look back on my life, looking at those things, looking at the horoscopes, thinking I was just a Capricorn, and then going and getting the chart, nothing was ever enough. I had to get the charts done. I
hmm
had to
hmm
get multiple charts done, and then maybe annually or
hmm
maybe monthly. It's just never ever enough. It breaks my heart that I honored and worshiped God's creation over God Himself. I was deceived, I was deceived. But when you think back and on your days, the fact that you believed that a created thing knew whether you, I always say this, hey, you're good in business, you're quirky, you're what, we're talking about planets and how they're moving and where they are and whether, and this whole thing. And you think that it actually knows something and knows the future. And number one, it's idolatry because you're worshiping creation. and not the creator, our God who made those planets, right?
Right.
Also, only God is omniscient. I
Right.
mean, of course, planet doesn't know anything about you.
Right.
The star doesn't have, your next job lined
No.
up for you or
No.
anything like that. It's not in the stars,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Right.
right,
Yeah.
but God knows all things. And so, like you said before, why would you even want to look? Why are you going to something like that when we can rest in our God? And of course, we would encourage people to come to saving faith in
Right.
Jesus Christ
Right.
if you
If
feel
you don't
ready,
know
right?
Christ.
And
Right.
then, yeah, and then you have that fulfillment and contentment. But without it, it's that desire for hidden knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
desire for hidden knowledge, right? What's going to
Exactly.
happen tomorrow? What's going to happen, right? How do you feel looking back? Do you ever just, wow? I mean, and you were an astrologer, so
Yeah.
you really believed
I really
that
believed
you,
it. Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I mean, I was totally sold out to it. It was what, after I became an astrologer, I'd already been in the New Age several years, but after I became an astrologer, that was the whole focus. That was
wow,
it for me. I felt that was my calling. That was my identity. I lived, breathed, ate, slept astrology. It was just, 24/7. And it had so much meaning for me. And I'm always looking at the charts for the people that came to me and explaining their life to them. And I really felt like I was helping them. I really thought I was helping them. And what I was doing was interpreting the position of these planets. I was using divination. That's another thing I should point out. Astrology is a form of divination, and if you look up the word divination, like on a search online, like Bible Gateway or another place you can go, and you just put in a word, and then it will show all the verses that have that word in it. So put in the word for divination, and you will see tons of things come up. And divination is condemned from the beginning to the end, because divination is trying to get information by reading a hidden meaning in a shape, a figure, a number, in creation reading, which would be astrology, reading a meaning into creation, into a pattern, which is also part of astrology because you're looking at patterns. Um, and so when you try to read a hidden meaning into something that has no meaning at all, that's
wow,
that's divination. It also involves trying to get information via a supernatural method. So that divination would cover being a psychic, because you're using some kind of supernatural method, whether you think it's supernatural or not. That's what you're doing. You're getting information beyond the five senses. So that is also divination. So divination is strongly condemned by God. And one of the ways we can understand that is all forms of divination, like astrology, and all forms of the occult, like spirit contact, trying to contact the dead, and sorcery, were all practices that were done in conjunction with the worship of false gods. And we see
right,
that back in Deuteronomy 18, where God is leading Moses and his people in the wilderness, and they're going to these pagan lands. They're going to encounter all these pagan practices. And so God's warning them. And so he warns them of many things like false prophecies and these other things. And then he warns them in Deuteronomy 18, starting in verse 9, when you go into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not sacrifice your child in the fire. Do not, consult mediums. Do not look for omens. And he lists all the practices of the occult in verses 10 and 11. And
hmm,
so this is a revelation God gave to Moses, which Moses was giving to the people. And it was God's warning. This was how the people consulted their false gods. This is how they got information from their false gods. So that is one
hmm,
reason God condemns it, and it's associated with the worship of false gods. It's not just that it's a practice God doesn't like, or it's a practice that isn't actually based on truth. It's not, that's not, that's part of it. But the real basis, the root of these practices is the worship of false gods. That's what they're connected to. That's why there's a spiritual element involved in these things. That's why astrology isn't just, it's not just that it's a false system and it's unscientific. It's actually connected to the worship of false gods. So there's a spiritual element to it. So the horoscope column is this very watered down version of astrology, but it is still connected to astrology. It comes from astrology. It's a part of astrology. And so you can't separate it from astrology and make it into a fun thing. It's just, because I know when it was in the newspapers all the time, they always had a disclaimer that said, this is for entertainment purposes only. And they have
Right,
they
right,
have to do that to protect themselves from lawsuits, because
right.
somebody could read it and then try to sue the newspaper because it said they were going to get a job offer and they didn't. So I'm suing you because my horoscope told me I'd get a job offer today and I didn't. So to protect themselves from lawsuits, they had to say this is for entertainment purposes only. But it's not entertainment; it's a part of astrology. So
Marcia, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's so powerful, everything you're saying. And I'm just thinking, my heart breaks for what breaks our Lord's heart. And I'm thinking about people that, and I'm not saying saved believers, I'm not saying, but there are people, just as I once was, a person who would use the words God, Jesus, and practice divination, say the Lord's Prayer thinking it was protecting me, and then do a reading.
yeah,
There are people that will even credit God with some of these things. And like you said before, you thought you were helping people. I thought I was helping people. But people trying to mix this together is very common, isn't it?
yeah,
To trying to mix God and Jesus in with, and how you're explaining it. And I pray you hear what Marcia said. It's associated with worshiping false gods. This
exactly.
is abomination
Yeah.
to our Lord. And that's what he says also in
He
Deuteronomy 8.
uses the word abomination. Yes.
Uses the word abomination. And I always encourage people, it's not that you don't have a general gist of what that means, but always look up those definitions. I believe it's something hated or
It,
disgusted, but
it
he's
mean it
disgusted.
means, I think, literally it's something that makes God want to throw up.
There you go. Just
It makes
yeah.
makes God sick. It makes God. It
Mhm.
makes that's his the word used to express God's hatred of it.
Right. So here's another thing I was thinking, Marcia, and I want you to weigh in on this. Okay, so I've spoken to people and I've thought about this a lot. When you have any divination, but we're talking about, for the sake of this video, of course, horoscopes and astrology. So you look at this horoscope, the booby trap, and you see, oh, you are going to pass by something, and, I don't know, I'm going to make it up. You're passing by a building that has a red label on it, and that's where you're going to have this encounter. Well, now you go out, you could pass 17 buildings with that red thing on it, and you're going to be heightened, though, aren't you? You're going to be, oh. And I say that things like this in all tools of divination and forms of divination can almost lead to you self fulfilling a counterfeit prophecy, a
Yes.
counter prophecy that because you're going to be, oh, that's on my radar now. Now I have to pay attention, or I'm going to notice that because
Right.
this this said that, or my astrologer said to this and this and this was going to happen, and now I'm, oh yeah, oh, so and so has this name or this place, and you become heightened. And I always say that's the enemy, the devil, giving you that nudge in the wrong direction, that gentle nudge in the
Yes.
wrong direction.
Yeah.
But people can do that, right, Marcia? Like you
Oh
read this
yeah.
horoscope,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You take
yeah.
what is said in the horoscope or what the astrologer says or what the psychic says, and you
Mhm.
take that and you start applying it to things that happen to you. It's very easy to do. I mean, in fact, I think that's what most people do. And so they
Yeah.
start reading a meaning into things around them based on what they read in the horoscope column. Or they start looking for it to see if it's going to happen. And of course, then that makes you put your attention on that and not on other things. And it can become self-fulfilling. Something can happen and you can interpret it according to what you read in the horoscope column or according to what your astrologer said when they gave you the chart reading. And I mean, I even point this out as one of the ways that makes astrology seem accurate. I have like 4 things, and one of them is that the client takes the information and applies it to specific situations, even though the astrologer has not predicted something specific. They may have predicted something general, like you're going to have, there's going to be a new circumstance in your job that's going to be challenging in the next 3 months. Well, a lot of things can happen in the next 3 months that will be challenging. So let's say something happens that's very challenging. The client's immediately going to think, well, this is what Marcia was talking about. This is exactly, look at what happened today at work. This is what Marcia was talking about. So
Giving it
yeah, you're
credibility
giving
then.
it credibility, and then that makes you think there's accuracy here. I want to go back for more. And you mentioned, how you could never get enough. I had most of my clients came to me every year, and not only would they come to me every year for an update, I would do an update based on the present position of planets compared to their chart and how it would look for the next year. They also would come to me for relationship charts because I did that too. So they would want to compare their chart with their child or with their boyfriend or their husband or their wife or whoever it was. And they'd want, usually it was one of those, it was either a child or a romantic partner or a spouse. And they would want me to do the chart of that person and then compare the two for
Mm-hmm.
compatibility and things like that. And that was a big part of my business. So I had
Mm-hmm.
repeating clients because you always want to know more. Things are always happening. The planets are always moving. So what I'm going to tell you this year about the upcoming year, that's going to change a year from now. You have to come back. Now, I never promised, to be specific. I never said, I'm going to 100% tell you what's going to happen. I would say, this is where the planets are in your chart. This is how they're affecting your chart. These are the energies that are coming into your chart, and how you use them depends on you. And then I would give possible scenarios. So I
Mm-hmm.
would give these scenarios, various scenarios, maybe 3 or 4 scenarios that could come into shape in different ways. And then they would, see that played out, because you can take that kind of information and apply it to so many things. And
Sure. And
it
there's,
seems to be accurate.
right. And I want to shift into the dangers and give the warning. I mean, obviously everything you're saying so far is, I mean, to me, it's just, wow. It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. Here's the thing, what I always say, when you do devilish things, you get devilish outcomes. So you're the person getting these charts done, and the horoscopes, like you said, something that may start off, oh, it looks innocent, it's little, it always gets to something more. It will
Mhm.
entice you to some extent, and whatever, you go further because it's not enough. But none of the information is coming from God. Therefore, it is not truth. Accuracy, yes, there can be some accuracy. Of course, there has to be some accuracy. And you've said in several videos that we've done that you, of course, were also getting information from demons while you would do. Of course, you were practicing
Right.
divination.
I
You,
had spirit guides, like all astrologers and psychics and mediums,
yeah,
and
yep.
everybody like that has spirit guides. They all have spirit guides.
So the danger, one danger, and then I want to hear what you have to say about this too, is now placing my faith and trust in the information given to me by demons. And you know, well, what else would you? Well, hold on. Let me just change how I say that. I'm putting my faith and trust in information that is coming from an ungodly source and an ungodly practice. Therefore, no good thing, no true good thing can come from that.
Exactly.
It cannot.
No.
So, and it's a matter of time,
Yeah.
right, Marcia?
Yeah.
It's a matter of time unless you come to Christ and repent. It's a matter of time. Those, so, okay, the relationship. Let me ask you this, Marcia. people that do the horoscopes and the astrology charts and the relationship, right? Again, because this is not from God, right? See, God's not going to send you a spouse or you know, whatever through an astrology chart.
Right.
So it doesn't work that
No,
way, right?
not from God. Definitely not.
Not from God.
Right.
Right. So you're doing these things, and you're probably doing other New Age practice. You're probably doing other New Age practices also, because I always say it's like a bag of potato chips, divination. You can never just have one.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
going to have,
Yeah. That's
you
right.
know.
You can't just have one.
So the danger then is involving yourself, because now you're heightened. You're listening to all this information. You'll just take that job that kind of sort of sounds like the one that Marcia mentioned in the chart. You're going to go on the date with the guy, and maybe they're even married. Maybe they're even,
Or just bad
I don't
news,
know, just
maybe.
toxic. Bad news, baby.
Yeah.
But your astrologer said this is it. And, after all, things were lining up and this, that, and the other.
Right.
I'm trying to express that because it's ungodly, the results of these practices and the information you're given is disastrous.
Yes. It's not. It's not. Yes. Yes. I think you're saying it very well. It is the information coming from the horoscope column or the astrologer, or anybody like that, the psychic, is not going to ever lead you to a place that is going to be beneficial spiritually, for sure. It's going to be
Right.
actually non beneficial to you, it's going to be damaging to you. It's not going to lead you to what God wants for you. It's always going to lead you, to something that is ultimately destructive spiritually and maybe even beyond spiritually. It could be destructive emotionally, mentally, or even physically. So, because this is information coming from ungodly sources, therefore, it's not for your benefit, because ungodly sources coming ultimately from Satan is not going to be for your benefit, because Satan hates humanity. Humanity was created
Yes.
by God in God's image, so Satan hates that. He hates it. So whatever he can do to get you on his side, or to destroy you or keep you from knowing Christ, he'll do. And this information could be part of that way of misleading you. And, one of the ways I can tell you that that happened was, as far as me being an astrologer, is that I often recommended, um, to my clients, I recommended psychics that I knew,
Yeah.
mediums that I knew, New Age psychologists that I knew, New Age, or Eastern spiritual teachers that I myself liked or followed. Like, I really liked Yogananda, and I'd read Autobiography of Yogi. So if I thought someone had an interest in that, or they expressed an interest in Hinduism or something, I'd say, oh, you need to read Yogananda's book, or you need to go to this psychic. She's a friend of mine and she's very good. A lot of
Mhm.
people took my advice. They went to other people like psychics. They went to, or they read books I recommended that were New Age books, or they looked up some kind of spiritual teacher that I thought was good, or I had read about, or I myself liked. And so I was leading them to even more danger from these other people, from these other teachers or psychics or whoever I was sending them to, mediums. And I knew a lot of mediums and a lot of psychics, of course, because I was in that world. And I was
Sure.
teaching for a while. I was teaching at this place that had, all the classes were, it was called the Foundation of Truth. It's where I learned astrology. Well, it's part of the place where I learned astrology. There were two different places. And in the Foundation of Truth, where I taught for a while, they had mediums, they had psychics, they had people that did past life regression, they had tarot card readers, and they had classes and all of these things. They offered classes. So I knew most of the teachers there, I knew all of the people there. So I was always sending people there, here's a tarot card reader that you might want to see. And so I was coming to me, it wasn't just getting bad information, ungodly information astrologically, but they were getting sent to other people who would give them
Right.
more ungodly information and more ungodly guidance. And it just kind of builds, it just grows. And that's the way that world works. That's how it works.
Yeah, 100%. No matter where you are, it's the same thing here. The New Age community,
Yeah.
and yeah, we had the classes too. They do it at they do psychic fairs where there
Hmm.
would be all
Hmm.
different sorts of
Hmm.
readings, just like that. And I say Satan wants to build his army. That's what happened with me. I saw the psychic medium. Oh, you're a psychic medium too, Jen, because I had just had that dream with the boy who I believed was a deceased boy because the information got validated and the whole, well, that's because you're a psychic medium and that's because you need to help people.
Uh-huh.
And you need to, and there it is. And Satan preys on that, Prey, preys on that because we're nice people. Hey, listen, we're nice people.
Yes.
Telling you right. We're nice people. We wanted to help people. We didn't have the way to help people. Now we do. The real help is Jesus
Right,
Christ.
right,
But
right,
we were
right.
deceived, deceiving other people, like you were doing and I was doing. You were deceived, I was deceived, and we were pawns for the evil
But
one.
I thought I was
That's
helping people too. That's why I one reason I got interested in doing astrology is like I could learn this and then I can tell all these things to these people because they don't know astrology and I learn it and I can read the meaning into this stuff and give them all this information about their life, their relationship, their career. To me it was like the whole package. And I really thought that, and people would tell me that I helped them. They would say, "Wow,
yeah.
this information really helped me, Marcia. This was great." So, I mean, they came back, for more. So,
Oh yeah.
clearly they thought they
Unfortunately,
were being helped.
right, right. They did because they didn't know the truth. Neither
No,
did we.
no, right, right.
And that's the illusion, though, Marcia. Satan masquerades as an
I
angel of
was
light,
just
and
about
it's
to
no
say the angel of light. Yeah,
longer.
I was just about to say that. It's the angel of light. And that I'm always
Yeah.
telling people this stuff and the new age itself, which I put as a different category from the occult, but I was a new age
Right.
as an astrologer. So they overlap a lot. The new age uses the occult. And I always say it always appears helpful and beneficial and positive. It's always the appearance it takes on. That's why it's so deceptive because people think something that's being so helpful and seems to be so, beneficial, and then the people seem so kind and concerned. Nobody thinks that that's evil. They just can't believe that somebody would be doing something evil who's being so nice and trying to help you. And that's the deception. That's one of the big deceptions. I did want to say something quickly because you were mentioning people who don't know Christ getting caught up in this, and I mean I totally agree with you. There are a lot of Christians who have a little tiny belief in astrology, and
Yeah.
I've had many Christians say to me, well, if there's nothing to it, then why is my description as a Libra, so accurate? Why is it so
Mhm.
accurate? Why does it seem so true? Or the other way that I've heard Christians approach it is God put all the zodiac signs there for a reason. So there's some kind of maybe meaning there for us. There's guidance. And then there's a whole thing called the gospel and the stars, which has been completely debunked, by the way, which is another approach. So
Mhm.
all none of these are based on anything biblical. They're all deceptions. Yes, you can think that, oh yeah, I'm really a Libra. I read about Libra, but I always tell people if you read every single characteristic of Libra, you would not fit every single one. Plus, if you look at the characteristics of the other signs, you're going to find some that do fit you. You're going to find some
Mhm.
in Taurus probably that fit you, maybe some in Capricorn, maybe some in Gemini, who knows? We all fit to a certain extent most of the zodiac signs because what they do today anyway in modern astrology is they describe human nature. They just describe
Wow.
human nature. Therefore, everybody's going to identify with some of them. But what we do is we're always looking, it's a natural psychological thing to look for patterns. And we want to try
Mhm.
to look for patterns and identify them. And so when we see a set of characteristics that we think are us, and we say that, well, that's my zodiac sign. So yeah, I fit my zodiac sign. I mean, I thought I fit my zodiac sign too. I knew
Yeah.
even not just my zodiac sign, I knew my moon sign, I knew my rising sign, I knew where all my planets were, I know what houses they were in because I was an
I'm
astrologer. So to me, it was like, oh yeah, that really makes sense. That's why I'm like that because here's my moon in the 10th house or whatever. And I would think that makes sense because I'm looking at it through this filter where I'm convinced it's true and I'm looking at the patterns that fit and I'm taking that as reality. And then I'm reading everything else through that. It's a psychological deception. That's why the personality profiles, all of them, that 'cause
Mm.
they're all bogus. The Enneagram, though, is very, very spiritually based. That's why that one's so dangerous. But that's why they all seem to work because we look for patterns and identify with things. It's a self deception. It's a self.
We did do a video about the Enneagram, by the way. I can
Yes,
link it in the description. I believe
that
we
would be
did.
good because astrology and the Enneagram have a lot in common.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking, I don't mean to ever, I definitely do not downplay any of this. And when I give a little chuckle or something like that, it's because I can't believe how duped I'm so duped because there was always a justification. So if
Yes,
something didn't line, so I was a Capricorn, and I say was because I am not a Capricorn. I am a child of God.
right,
Thank you very much.
right. You are no
Right,
longer a Capricorn. Nope.
right, no longer ex Capricorn
Ex
saved.
Capricorn. I like that.
I kind of like that
I should
actually. Yeah,
put that in your show for the today.
I'm writing that down. I'm writing that down. Saved by the amazing grace of Jesus Christ. No longer a Capricorn. um, But if there was something that didn't, so I matched up with whatever. But like you're saying, if there was something that didn't match up, there was always a justification. Well,
Exactly.
that's because my sun sign
Yes.
is real in Pisces, and that's why I'm that way. But this is why I laughed a little bit because you're all the signs.
Yes.
Everybody is.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
all human nature, like you said. Wow. Oh man, how do we get duped? We know how we get duped, but
Exactly. I mean, it's really a lot. It's describing things about human nature, and because it's got the mental, the physical part, the mental part. Like the air signs are all mental, the earth signs are all physical. The fire signs are the emotion and the spirit. The water signs are the emotion and sensitivity. The fire signs are the spirit and the will. So you put all that together, that's a person. Body,
right,
mind, will, emotion. That's pretty much what you have.
right.
So, that's why it's so easy to think that you're, that sign. And like yeah, you could always find a reason to explain something that didn't come out accurately. You could
Mhm.
always say, oh, well, but that's because, my moon's in Libra. So that's why I didn't feel that way when that happened. Or it's because Saturn was in my seventh house. That's why I reacted like that. So there was always a way to justify something that didn't maybe sound like it should sound. Based on
Right,
how you thought maybe it should be. There's always a way to explain it. Always in these things, you can always find a way.
right. And what's interesting to me when you think about uh, divination, the predictions made through divination, God, when God spoke to his prophets, when God speaks to us through his word, there's no, maybe you're going to walk by a building, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. I feel like this is going to happen in 5 months, or I think, but maybe not, but also maybe.
Yeah.
So, God doesn't get confused.
No.
God knows exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when he spoke to his prophets, that was God's word declared by God, 100% God, 100% correct. There were many false prophets, of course. And I was thinking, even you gave such an excellent example from the book of Daniel. There is nothing new under the sun, which is Ecclesiastes. So I'm thinking about you when you were doing the charts and everything. You were no different than those Chaldeans.
No, I
And
what really wasn't. I really thought, yeah, and I'm giving information, but I'm based, this is all based on things coming from the demonic world and coming from my own ideas and man's ideas about what these planets should mean. Plus, it was mixed in with Jungian psychology. A lot of
Mhm.
Jungian psychology is mixed in with contemporary astrology. So that's a very bad source too, because Carl Jung was very much into occult and pagan ideas. He was
Mm-hmm.
really more into spirituality than psychology. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
I think Jungian psychology goes so well with astrology. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're reading in these Jungian meanings like the collective unconscious and the shadow self and everything all gets part of astrology readings by all the
Wow.
astrologers I knew, or most of them, were into that same kind of thing. I don't think all astrologers everywhere are, but the astrologers I knew and that I read, the books by astrologers I read, were Jungian oriented. And we talked about the collective unconscious. The outer planets are the planets of the collective unconscious and what that means to humanity. So you even go beyond the individual and you start talking about humanity in the whole global world based on astrology. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of this is this these ideas are all coming from sources not from God and that are against God. They're not only not
Mm-hmm.
from God, they're against God. And you're wrapping yourself up in that worldview. And it's totally opposed to the worldview of Christianity, the biblical worldview. And so
Mm-hmm.
when Christians think they can kind of delve into this, or they think there's something in astrology that's true or helpful, I have to really nip that in the bud and say, no, there's absolutely zero benefit in astrology. There's absolutely nothing there that would benefit you. Absolutely nothing. And it has no meaning for you. It has no meaning, period. Actually, there's no meaning at all. There's the sun and the moon. The only meaning they have is that they were created by God and what we know about them physically. That's not really a meaning. Those are just physical facts. So,
Right.
to try to get a meaning out of anything in creation is that's what God absolutely condemns. That is what goes way back to the worship of false gods. There was
Wow. That
a
is
point in there I was going to make, but I made another point, so that's okay.
no, that was literally like a mic drop. Like how you said the whole thing was an excellent place to end because you really summed the whole thing up. And when I said I love that, I actually wrote it down because I'm going to steal it from you.
Okay,
So
okay. You,
because that is God's law, Marsha. I'm going to ask you kindly if I can borrow it. Um, when you said looking for hidden meanings from something without any meaning at all.
yeah, yeah,
That's it. That's huge. That's huge. So I really pray that that God will give people the ears to hear this message, and that people out there, if you're dabbling, if you're still looking at the horoscopes, please stop. Marcia couldn't have said it any better at the end. Just no,
yes,
don't do it. Not wise, not beneficial, only leads to problems and destruction because it is not from God. It is condemned by God. And it doesn't matter if it's presented to you as a game, as a one liner, as a joke,
right,
uh, by a huckster. I don't care. Hey, there are hucksters, there are charlatans
yeah,
in all these, but
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't make divination untrue.
right,
So don't fall for it no matter what. And don't blow it off as something that's not dangerous or not
right,
true. That's
right,
really important. Just be educated about it so that you can stay away from it and that you can walk upright before the Lord and not open any doors, demonic doors. I know some people don't like that phrase. Sorry, but I'm okay with it. Uh, giving an entry. We don't want to do that. Especially I should say as Christians, because we know enough about God and the devil. We do know, and we have the Bible. Unbelievers are not as likely to know those things. So we are told to be watchful because the devil prowls around like a lion seeking to whom he may devour. So we need to stay away from his tools, from his
right. His tool,
playground.
right, his playground. I say the occult is Satan's playground because it has to do with the supernatural and with hidden meanings and things like that can you can get caught up in and that don't really there's really no substance to it, but it's dangerous because there's a spiritual element to it. Whenever there's a spiritual element that's not from God, and in this case the
Mhm.
spiritual element is from the occult, it's an occultic element. We don't want to have anything to do with it. And what I always say to people when they're tempted, when they've been used to reading the horoscope column and they're trying to break away from that or they know they should, I always say, If you're about to read it or you're starting to read it, stop and go and look up a Bible verse instead. I really
Yeah.
believe in studying the Bible in context and not just reading a verse, randomly. But in this case, if it's to help you break away from the horoscope, I think it's okay. Just go, okay. And if you're, if you're on your phone or on your laptop or whatever, you can quickly go to Bible Gateway or whatever Bible app or whatever you have, and just go, okay, I'm going to look at Psalm 1, I'm going to look at Psalm 53, I'm going to look at, Mark chapter 1, anything. Just go to a chapter in the Bible and start reading that,
Mhm.
and just do that instead, because you're more likely, you will be blessed by reading God's word, whereas
Amen.
you won't get anything beneficial from reading that horoscope. So I tell people, just train yourself to do that, and if you keep doing that, eventually you'll lose the desire to look at the horoscope. You won't look at it anymore.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you said train yourself. We are called to discipline ourselves
Right.
according to God's word,
Mhm.
and that's now good advice that Marcia gives. This is excellent advice. So I appreciate that. Marcia, I can't thank you enough. And I look forward to all the other things that we're going to be doing coming up. We're going to be doing some lives, we're going to be doing some more videos. So
Yes,
very exciting. And my friends, Marcia has an article about almost everything.
I do. And I
But
have an article on horoscopes. I do. On horoscopes.
so to go and read these articles, go to christiananswersnewage.com,
Right.
and you can go right to the search bar and type in horoscope and look for, she has the search bar. So you can go in there and just look up whatever
Right.
you could put astrology, you could put
Right.
horoscope,
Right.
okay? And you can access those articles. And I thank you so much, my dear sister. I love you and God
Love
bless
you
you.
too, Jen. Thank you.
And remember, everybody, share the gospel of Jesus Christ today with somebody and your testimony, because though you have nothing to lose, they have everything to gain. God bless you. See you next time.